I can go over it multiple times, so if you don't feel like you got room, you can, of course, have me go over it again. So the quiz tomorrow is on the articulated skull. You'll be able to identify the different bones of the skull. So we have the frontal bone, we have the parietal bones, right and left, the occipital bone in the back, you have the temporal bone on the side here, you have the sphenoid bone, which is right here, so sphenoid bone on the inside in this area. You have the ethmoid bone, which you can see here. See the ethmoid bone here. You can also see the ethmoid bone at the top part of the nasal cavity. Okay, so those are the cranial bones. And then the facial bones, you have the mandible. You have the nasal bones, right and left nasal bones. You have the lacrimal bone, which is right here. There's a right and left one, of course. You've got the zygomatic bone right here, the cheekbone, zygomatic. You have the maxilla bone. There's a right and left maxilla bone. Inside here, this piece right here is the vomer. So that's the vomer right there. And then this bottom lump on either side is the inferior nasal concha. So that's either side, right or left, is the inferior nasal concha. And back here, this bone right here, right and left, is the palatine bone. Then other things you'll need to be able to identify on an intact skull is the anterior cranial fossa, which is just this whole level. The middle, so anterior cranial fossa. The middle cranial fossa, this level. And then the posterior cranial fossa, which is this level. Also have the superior orbital fissure, and below that the inferior orbital fissure. Then you have the cavities, so this space here is the cranial cavity. You have the orbits, or orbital cavities, the nasal cavity, the oral cavity. And then there are also some of the sutures, which are connections between bones of the skull. You have to know the names of. I can get this thing back on. So you have the coronal suture, it's between the frontal bones and the parietal bones. You have the sagittal suture between the two parietal bones. You have the lambdoid suture between the occipital bone and the parietal bones. And on the right and left sides, you have the squamous suture, which is between the temporal bone and the parietal bones. There's a right one and a left one. For the quiz, you don't have to worry about right and left. I just let you know there are two of them. And that is it.